sola sarei a do mar, aí nada sola sarei a do mar.
Hey, you guys, Sancken Burgess Knights Round Table series. So excited. This is our first like all girl group hoot. So yay us, and you're welcome. And today we have Jenn Velmer over here in California, and then Saoirse up in the mountains or ish of Colorado. And we're just gonna jump right into the quick round question. That's kind of our new jam. And today our question is, if you could go back in time or forward in time with any 2 to 3 humans, including yourself, what would be your tea party setting? What questions would you ask? Who would be your guests and why? So, Saoirse, we'll go ahead and start with you. And you have the floor, sister.
The first person that comes to my mind, if I could like go back in time and meet someone, would actually be, her name's Grace O'Malley or Gran Omai. She's known as the Pirate Queen. She's an Irish pirate who's this really dope woman in history who's like real, who like commanded a fleet of like 30,000 men to like fight the English from taking over Ireland. And I read a book about her, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. And then I just like was like, holy moly, I can't believe this woman existed that just was like commanding a pirate fleet, like rebelling against colonial oppression from England. And she was a mother and had like children and a husband and just, yeah. So I think, what would I ask her? I think I'd ask her if she felt like it was worth it, which is sort of an interesting question, but she was imprisoned for a couple of years, and I'm just curious, like, I don't know, it would just be crazy to talk to her. I don't even know what I'd ask her. I'm so like astounded by this person in history. And I think for me, like, learning about her made me feel like, oh, well, I could do whatever I want. And just sort of empowered me. Just like hearing the story of this woman made me feel like I could really just choose my life after that. I don't know if that makes sense. And then another, like, if I could go back even further in history, I'd probably like go back to like my oldest female ancestor and try to I would just love to just witness whoever that is.
That's a great answer. How did you come up?
Yeah.
Where did you hear about this pirate badass broad?
I actually heard about her from an ex-boyfriend who was a total jerk, but he gave me that book, so.
Well, yay him. Shout out. Shout out to the ex-homies. All right, Jen, you're up next. So you go back in history.
I was actually going to say that she's in a Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. She's in that book also.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
My daughter has read about her, so I was like, oh my God, I know who you're talking about.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just highly recommend those books about badass women, Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. There's like 2 series, and it's great just to, know more about the women in history. Like, so a good part. The first things that came to mind for me of who I would have a tea party with was like literally any of my grandmothers, like whether, just this generation grandmothers or anything back. And the reason why is because I'm kind of like a grandma at heart. And I would love to just glean their stories and their experiences and learn from them. And I would probably invite like my 7-year-old self to be there and really just kind of soak up that like grandma energy. And I love stories. I love hearing stories. I always loved hearing my grandparents' stories. So I feel like that's kind of a really big sweet spot for me.
That's awesome. I really struggled with this, and I don't know. I might get, some shenanigans on this, but whatever, I'm going with it. Well, past and future, I would start with Anime Gaskin. In my past career or whatnot, I had, the honor of learning her teachings and in the midwifery and doula birth community. And she and her husband, Stephen, who has since passed or whatnot, started, birthing children in school buses out in California. And they kind of changed the way that we get to birth our children in a lot of ways and made it okay for you to be okay, I guess. So I'd love it to have her as her 20, 30-year-old self when she was studying OBGYN and all that kind of thing, and, birthing babies and starting the farm out in Tennessee. But then I'd love to, fast forward, if you will, into the future for, maybe, her legacy mark that she would like to leave as well, and what she learned, and ask her those questions. And my other person, okay, y'all ready for this, is Hugh Hefner with American Playboy, which I really struggled with actually even sharing that. But when I did a lot of research on him and learned more about his support of women and the support of social equity, if you will, especially the African American community in music. And there was a very specific artist who, it was the first time she ever didn't have to walk through the back door. And he asked for a $5 raise at the magazine that he was working at the time. They said no, and he went and started an empire. And he, like Steve Jobs, put the people around him that he knew what he was good at and he knew what he wasn't good at. And so he brought these people around. And so I think more so the mindset of creating something that was really, really difficult and really hard, which they both are completely opposite, and both did something really, really difficult. So that was my past, present, future Tea Party. Saoirse, you've got some new projects going out right now, and I would love to hear, what's been inspiring you, because you're also working with plant medicine and you incorporate it with women, and just, I don't know, it's just a really lovely vibe that you put out to everybody, and it's just very genuine and kind.
Thanks. Yeah, so I started this sort of program, which is sort of the umbrella for all the work I do, called PlantSong. I guess it was about 3 years ago, and it's really because I've been sitting in a ceremony with predominantly Native American elders for over 11 years. And I got really lucky. I mean, pulled out of the darkest depths of my life experience when I was 19, being invited to my first Native American ceremony. And over time, I have just been weaving my work with these living elders of these lands that I've had the great honor of being able to learn from, and trying to remember my own stories from my lineage. And it's been a really complicated process at times, but also really beautiful. And as I go deeper into the center of my studies of my own ancestry, I actually continue to see I'll kind of describe it as these concentric circles of connection between my own ancestral teachings of my lineage, and being so similar to the ancestral teachings of the lineages here in the United States that I've learned from, as well as in other places. So when I was at the river one day, I was this was 4 years ago, and I was really wanting to be true with what I was bringing forth into the world, and for it to be I kind of wanted to go back to the simplicity of the origins of human nature. And and like what indigeneity or just what it means to like be alive on earth. And I was just like praying at the river and singing. And when I go, I have a daily practice. I try every day, at least 4 times a week, but hopefully every day I go to this river spot where I live. Unless I'm traveling, I find a spot wherever I am that holds the place of that. But I go every day to this spot outdoors, and usually I wind up singing. It just like happens. That's part of my spirit, part of my nature is just to sing to like plants and to water spirits. And I was doing that, and I was like, oh, PlantSong. Like, this is what everybody does. This is what every indigenous tradition from around the world has done, is work with plants and sing. There are sacred songs from every tradition. And so I just started working with that, and like my intention and like teaching PlantSong classes is actually really to just empower people to realize how simple it is to live with the earth. It doesn't have to be this whole complicated like thing. It's like, look at that plant over there. Like, you can eat that. It's healthier than what you'll buy at the store. It gives you everything that you're lacking in your diet. It will help you recover from giving birth and all these different things. And it's just actually a lot easier than we think it is. It doesn't have to be so clinical. Yeah, could say more about it, but that's I don't know if that answered your question.
That was like, I mean, I knew it was gonna be cool, but that was like even cooler than I could imagine. It's one of my favorite things about, learning from, the people who choose to pull up a chair to the table, and it just, yeah, that's really lovely. And I love that you make that intention to go and create your space to give thanks and your intention for the day. And we were always moving so fast. I mean, I'm the first person to know that for sure about myself. Jen helps me like slow down. She's like, Jen,
can I say something to that really quick about the daily practice? I just want to respond. It's so challenging to commit to going outside and being with nature every day. I just try to do it for a minimum of 2 minutes. It always turns into over an hour, which is part of the challenge. But I am like committed to like having, like, I'm an earth-based mentor. I work with teen girls, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always teaching them, like, go outside and just be with the earth every day. And so therefore I have to have that integrity, like doing that too. And what I'm noticing is like, our society is rushing all the time. And so it feels like a waste of time to go sit by the river. And I'm continuing to like unwind the judgments that I have about myself and like how productive I'm being by just being with the earth. But then the truth is that my greatest inspiration comes from that time. Every time I go, I'm continually amazed by the inspiration that comes from that practice. And like, whatever, like I just can't like
it's like a surprise gift. You donated 2 minutes. You have these other people that you hold yourself accountable with integrity and character, and then you get the 2 minutes, and it turns into like this different journey. And so, yeah, check that box for sure. Jen and I were talking the other day, and we were talking to a friend of mine he's like, I haven't been outside and had my feet on the ground, naked feet, in 2 years. We were like, what are you talking about? Take your shoes off right now in the snow. Go do it. And, it really is true. It's like you think it's going to be a waste of time, but it really turns into such a gift. So, Jen, you have been birthing a project as well. And it's really cool because all these people that have come together for this project, we all kind of seem to be aligned in some way, shape, or form for these really like soulful projects that comes from a very beautiful place with intention. And I would love for you if you would tell us about what you've been working on and what you just recently birthed.
Yeah. First, I would love to just add to kind of the conversation in the sense of, with our fast-paced society, with the way that we have been kind of programmed to operate, or how we're supposed to, or how it's supposed to look like, is in this mold that really doesn't fit anybody. And we're coming back into what is our own personal, like, natural rhythms. And it's a practice, right? Because it's been going on for so long, because even like in the way that the subconscious works is that we don't have to think about it. And 95% of our lives are run by our subconscious. Like, it's just like we're just trying to get through the day, all doing our best. And within that, it's so programmed for like, go, 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 do, and be in this mold that is this one thing. And it really doesn't work for anybody. And so coming back into that innate rhythm and the cycles, and where things might be like, oh, you're not doing anything, or this is a waste of time. Like, I always come back to the sense that there is so much movement that happens in stillness. And when we quiet ourselves and get still with like what's inside, and even how, like Saoirse was saying, it's like the song that arises from her, the songs that come out. And like within all of these cultures, it's like when we're still, we can kind of receive, like, how is it coming in? Like, what are the messages that we're receiving that we're all receiving, but it's also unique for us too, right? How even Sancken, you're saying that like, oh, the alignment of all these projects that are coming out, it's like we're coming back into realignment with kind of like our personal destinies, which another way of saying that is really just being our authentic self. And that is such a practice too, in that sense of being that, like, so often we're programmed and imprinted to, again, this is what success looks like. This is what, beauty, this is what all these things look like. And it's kind of like a really big bullshit illusion, in the sense of that it can only fit this one way. We see all the like colors and, varieties and nature and animals and all these things, and what, like, we as humans are the only exempt ones. So just kind of, all that finding that natural rhythm and who we are, like, that is one of the biggest gifts that we can do and be and like give to the world. And that's I love getting to witness that in others, and always that practice within my own self. And that's a lot of what I do too. I'm an ancestral medicine woman, seer, and inner truth guide, and I see, hear, and feel the energy behind the physical. And I specialize in family and ancestral matrices, like working on the energetic aspects that keep one separate from their authentic self. And just as many woundings as there are in the ancestry, there's a lot of deep gifts. So it's kind of like how Saoirse was talking about, like the concentric circles of like working with indigenous, like teachers, and finding like, okay, what are these gifts and these like offerings and these medicines, and then within her own lineage of like finding the dance within it. It's like it's like a
dance,
like a tapestry. It's like these interwoven threads and how they're all connected. Yeah. And so it's like within ourselves, it's like that individuality that we're meant to be and who we are, and yet we're also connected to everything. And so within the ancestry, I say that, the wounding that happens along the way with our experiences, again, we're just trying to survive. So like our ancestors were just surviving their day-to-day life. They didn't have to think about it. A lot of time they're just trying to survive. And within those survival patterns, there's kind of fractures that can happen along the way, though, in the sense of, if we're not safe, if we're being told, we have to exist a certain way, or our own life force or essence is kind of, shut down in order to survive. And so I work with the energetic aspects of seeing, I kind of call it like see them in light codes in a way, but where they're like fractured and distorted. And by the time it gets down to us, it kind of becomes like the game of telephone, that the original message becomes distorted. And so where is it that we can kind of practice carving out the space, carving out the space to really hold it in loving awareness and honor it, and not make it go away or discard it, but really integrate it in a way that it can open up the truth of those things. Because within our experiences and within our woundings, like that's where we get experiential wisdom. And a lot of our indigenous and tribal cultures, like, you know, we've gotten away from that. And there were rites of passages, you know, they kind of said like, hey, when you're going to go through some shit in life, and within that, that's a part of like discovering who you are and your medicine in the world. And because we've gotten so kind of away from that, then a lot of times what we go through, we feel like there is no point, or there's, you know, nothing in it. And so to unlock the gifts, the woundings hold such wisdom. And so when we can bear space and presence and hold that in a loving awareness, then it kind of opens up that alchemy place of, again, like the weaving of how it's interconnected, of how it's held, and it's like still individual but so deeply apart. I just launched a course, a 7-month course called Light Lines. It's the alchemy of clearing ancestral survival codes. And so we're kind of diving in through all of the chakras right now and the vital energies associated with it, like where did the survival systems, like what was needed at some point, you know, with our ancestors, but where is it playing out in the here and now? And it's kind of distorted because it's out of context. So how do we honor it and love on those so the essence of each person can really like unlock and have access to the support of like the deep medicines that have come before?
I have a question for both of you. I was honestly, I was more nervous about this pairing than I have been for any of the other pairings, because it's been a while that I have been in the healing world in the way that I was for a good long while, a good 12 to 15 years, when I had my, you know, I was in the birth world and things of that nature. And I was kind of nervous, like, oh my gosh, what is this going to bring out of me? Like, I went into corporate America and this and Sancken Burgess, like all different. And it's so important because there's such like it's like a disjointed connection, if you will, sometimes. And when it heals itself back, it feels like home again. And I think that there's a lot of people, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but, you know, there's that fear of the wound, or, you know, of whatever the trials and tribulations that the cards have presented to you, if you will. And, you know, when you face that 2-minute walk outside barefoot, like a dandelion or whatnot, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember me. You know what I mean? And so I just really appreciate, you know, what y'all are bringing back to the table for people to come back to their old me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't know if were you guys both from like a young age really interested in this, or I mean, I know that you were, you know, Saoirse, you were invited to these really, you know, very sacred ceremonies it's quite an honor. Not everybody gets to do that, by the way. And I mean, like, is that like, where did it come from? Like, was it always in you and you came back to your you?
I thought that I had forgotten myself for a period of time. I realized a number of years ago, like, my first memories are of me like singing to trees, a lot of them, and that's just like, yeah, my spirit just wants to sing with nature. And there was a period where I stopped writing music for about just 3 years as a teenager. But then I traveled to South America when I was 15, And because I had family down there, and I started learning Spanish, and then I was re-inspired and began writing songs in Spanish because it felt like an easier way for me to communicate without being seen, since most of my peers in the US couldn't speak Spanish. I know there are lots of moments where I've lost myself throughout life in various ways, where I felt like, for example, becoming a mother is one of the hardest transitions of rediscovering of dying to oneself, and then remaking oneself, and then rediscovering that. I think most women probably go through some version of that, and having the support of the understanding that it's normal to go through that, I think is really helpful. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm not really sure what else your question is.
You nailed it. You had a lot of heartstrings for me, for sure. And what about
But nature is the crux for me.
What's that?
Nature is always how I come home to myself. And it's by being in relationship with the nature of who I am. Because I think what is really sad about our modern culture is the belief that we are separate from nature. And when just being, that's why there's, the forest bathing and stuff. Just being with the land is how I was thinking of Skeleton Woman. I don't know if you know that story of Skeleton Woman, but this woman has to sing her flesh back onto her bones. And I feel like the way to do that is being alone in nature. And it's okay to lose oneself. We're supposed to do that. I think that's what you're saying, or what Jenn was saying, when you're talking about wounds and the trials we go through in life. It's okay to lose yourself, because that's how you realize your gifts.
And it's a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I always, compare life to a sacred spiral. And we're always going to be revisiting some aspect, whether it's our foundational kind of upbringing and whatever that is, to whatever parts, right? We're always going to be revisiting that. And within that journey of life, within the rhythms and the cycles that we experience, is that we do learn more about ourselves. We do, we're meant to grow. And like nature offers us, right? Nature is that most direct reflection of being and existing in a natural state. And so within the what it is that we experience, I always say, sometimes when we're revisiting something, we've gone through something, the next time we're it comes up, it's not oh no, I thought I dealt with this and I healed this and now it's coming up. It's we healed it to what we could at that time. And now when it comes, it's we get to go into more depths. There's always going to be more.
You're just collecting your tool belt, essentially.
Yeah. And nature reflects that. Look at the rhythms and the cycles, right? The seasons. There's always going to be rhythms within ourselves. And as Saoirse was saying, in the sense of in our modern society and culture, in the way that it's this belief that we're disconnect. And when we're disconnect from that, it's so easy to be disconnect from ourselves, because it is a reflection. It is that kind of microcosm of the macrocosm. And when we're disconnect from ourselves, then that's and so I want to go into that a little bit, because when we're disconnect from ourselves, whether you want to call it feeling lost or something else, that is still a part of the rhythm, because it's we have these polarities. And, when we have experienced what it feels like to feel disconnect from the self, that is data. Granted, it's hard. It still does not feel good. And then it's like within that too, though, it can become the compass and a guide to actually become our ally. Like that's what it's for. Cause it's like when we can have those experiences, then it's like, ooh, the system knows, oh, I know what it's like. Like I'm making myself smaller, maybe I'm people pleasing, or I'm like disconnecting, or I'm shutting down. And that is our system's wisdom, that innate wisdom that's communicating and saying like, okay, how do we like meet ourselves? Like, and that's the practice. How do we meet ourselves in the moment? How do we meet ourselves in this time? No matter how many times, we're doing it, no matter like how many, times we think we've already done it, no matter how long something's playing out, it's like there's always more. It's always unfolding. And sometimes we get capped off, where it's like, oh, once you get the car, the house, the partner, the job, whatever, like that's it. And it caps us off because it's like, that is number one, like those things might not be for everybody. We're so individual, and what it is that is like calling us and leading us, and what it is that we're moving towards is going to be so individual. And so it's that sacred death in a way. Sometimes it is physical, right? Sometimes there's going to be those physical components in it. And within that death can be a transformation portal of something that is created like from that and in it. And there's all the feelings that we're going to have too. And, as humans, and that's the point, like we're meant to fucking feel it all, like all of it. And that is the beauty though. That is the humanity. Like that is those are gifts. That's like energy, like emotions are energy in motion, like we're meant to feel all of it. And even the disconnect.
I love what you just said there though, like the tears. I think sometimes, my mother said to my son a long time ago, it was 2014, 15, around that time. And she said, your mother's tears are rooting her to the earth. And I thought that was one of the most beautiful, like if you can think of it as like mycelium or water running down or whatnot. And it's like your tears root you to the earth.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just creating the space to be exactly where you're at and not having it figured out and not having to know the next piece. It's like that is our innate wisdom. That is, again, what we see reflected with nature all the time, is that, it doesn't have to have it figured out, but it just, we have that same like the wisdom that's in the seed. It's like when we feel muddy or cloudy or whatever, like how do we cultivate deeper to allow ourselves to just be? And when we can do that, like honestly, it's just like magic is created. And so often it feels scary to go in there because we haven't been given the resources. We haven't been given the support in our societies, in our cultures, in our systems to really like be able to express that. And even our emotions, we have like, anger management, or, something like sadness or depression is treated as things that are outside of ourselves, that when they come in, oh no, now you got to deal with it. And now you have to like make it go away. But like, we all have that. We all have those places. And like, how do we bring in more love to those places so that they can be and express? And then that creates the movement like that they're meant to, in a way, versus trying to, again, like put it in these boxes and make it a certain way.
I love this so much. I can't even handle it. This was, honestly, I feel like I just can't even. Y'all are so lovely. And both of these topics I think are so important. And it's not just for females. It's not just for children. It's not just for males, or whatever your pronoun that you prefer. With all due respect, is for people, for humans. And oh my gosh, I have so many ideas right now. But I know that with all due respect of everybody's time, I would really love to ask you both what you have going on for the future. I would love for both of you to come back. I would love to continue this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. And every single time, it's no different. It's the round table, what was it my father said one time, I think, something about Mac or the McCormicks or something, and it's like you go, oh, I know what it was, because we got, the Burgesses and the McCormicks and, political things and whatever, but everybody gets to the table and have all these different ideas, but everybody walks away as friends and more educated and more whole. And I don't know, it's just cool. So what do you ladies, lovely ladies, goddesses, if you will, what do y'all have coming up that we can all support with you guys and share with the world?
I have so much coming up, but I think the best way for folks to like sort of stay in touch with me is to probably follow my Instagram, which I'm sure we'll have like in, I don't know, the show notes or something, but it's Saoirse.song, which my name is Gaelic and it's spelled SAOIRSE.song. Yeah, just trying to get into the studio. I've tried to record an album many times, and recording an album is super different from playing an instrument. It's like a whole other art form. So I'm just looking forward to have something that I feel like really stoked on releasing. I've learned a lot over the last 6 years about recording. Well, I have PlantSong workshops. I'll be starting an online program in the winter that's oriented around Celtic myth and ancestry with plants and weaving. But in January of 2025, I'm helping my dear friend Shayla Noella Rosalina with a music and plant retreat in Guatemala, where we're learning from Mayan nanas. We did it this year, and it's been one of the most remarkable experiences of my life to learn from Mayan nanas. So we'll be like singing and having personal ceremonies with Mayan elder women every day, where we'll have like really intimate connection with them, eating meals with them and things like that at Lake Atitlan. So that's all I'll announce for now. Thank you for asking.
We will have everything super dialed, of course. That sounds beautiful. And Jen, I know you just launched your project recently, which congratulations to both of you, by the way. It's a lot of heart that goes into that, and so yay everybody. But Jen, what do you have coming up as well, and how can we all learn how to help come back to ourselves and be okay in the moment again?
So I just launched a 7-month course. We're kind of in the midst of that, so that's going.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways, I have a lot of stuff coming out this year. The best way to kind of follow that is probably to sign up for my email. I don't send emails all the time, but I just send kind of like love notes, updates, and mostly love notes. But that's where I kind of usually announce what I have, and that's on my website, Jenn Velmer, JENN, and then V as in Victor, ELMER.com. And I have a free 75-minute energy session on there where we dive into kind of the wounding that happens through the mother and father. We could still have the greatest parents in the world, but what it's addressing is like where the love distortion happens, like in lineage. So you can always check that out to get a free session. And all of my sessions are always meant to be revisited. So anytime you do, it's like getting a massage or acupuncture. It's like your body gets familiar. It's opening up the conversation with the energy, and the energy moves faster every time. So I have individual sessions on there, and I have a couple more courses coming out this year that I will kind of announce when they feel ready. And I'm actually working on an app. So that's like an exciting thing. So the app is going to be where I'm really starting to direct all of my stuff, and really just wanting to make this really accessible to a lot of people in the sense of, if it resonates. So Saoirse, thank you to like getting to, get to all hang, and Sancken, thank you for making this happen, and just in the way of that we get to keep, sharing and growing.
I have so many ideas
all
right
the love.
I'm excited to meet you and hear about your work, Jen. Okay.
All right, you
Thanks for
guys.
everything.
All right, next time. Okay, this is that. Hey, y'all, Sancken Burgess Nights Around Table series. Thank you so much, Jenn and Saoirse, for being on the shows. It's definitely one for the books. High fives around the house. Character integrity or who you are when nobody's watching. Always be a night around table. And let's all go out there and give a little more love and sing to whatever you want to.
Yamanja, inada sonda sereya duma, inada sonda sereya duma.